Sup everyone, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be reacting to a video that actually has a lot of people DMing me saying, Walrus, this is a new video Vars has made. Let's take a look at it. Vars, if you guys are not familiar with him, he makes a lot of discussion videos. He identifies things in the game, both good and bad, and he kind of breaks down why they are the way they are, right? A dude with great insight, and I actually do enjoy most of his videos that I get to react to. So today we're going to be talking about why Genshin Impact's banner gacha system is ruining the game. Now, Genshin Impact has many issues, right? But when it comes to the things that EroticWalruss should be prioritizing, I wouldn't really say the gacha system is at the top of it. And I'm gonna take a wild guess. Maybe he's saying that some characters are taking far too long to rerun because he's saying it's ruining the game. Obviously, with YouTubers and stuff, you gotta have a title that's somewhat intriguing. I don't think he means ruin the game, but it just makes some players not want to play the game as much because, let's say, their favorite character or characters haven't had a rerun, aka Eula, for example, for years now, right? I mean, almost going towards 2 years, 1.5. So maybe that's what he's referring to. But anyways, enough with that. Let's just get right into the video.
Something that's been on my mind for the past few weeks, ever since I made the Why No One Plays Eula episode, is that I wonder what's gonna happen when we reach Fontaine, then Natla, and then Snezhnaya in regards to characters. One of the biggest contributors to Eula's unpopularity is that anyone who started playing the game after 2021 has never had the opportunity to pull for her, much less consider if she's worth investing into or not. Very often, players have called to attention just how logistically untenable miHoYo's gacha banner design is, and how eventually it will reach a point where we've been waiting for months to even years for a character to be featured for pulls, an occurrence that will expectedly exacerbate as more 5-star units come out. We're already feeling the effects of the short-sighted approach to Genshin's banners right now, and chances are there's still dozens upon dozens of new units that will be released in the coming years. While I touched on this multiple times in the past, I think it's worth making a video on. Today we'll discuss the problem with Genshin Impact's gacha/banner system and how it will severely damage player experience the longer it's left unmanaged by the developers. So what exactly is the problem with Genshin's banners? Everyone has their own interpretation of this, so here's mine. To start, let's establish how miHoYo has been running its gacha system. Like every gacha title, there's a standard banner and a limited time featured banner, usually to advertise whoever or whatever was just released. What separates the two is the purported rate up for the characters and/or items in question, allowing players to have a much easier time getting that specific thing. Ordinarily, what most gacha games do is, after the event period is over, whichever character was on the featured banner would then be shuttled into the standard unit pool, where they can still be pulled for, just without the assistance of a higher rate. Exceptions apply, of course. Seasonal events like...
In my personal experience playing most gacha games, there are event period limited gacha characters like the one he's showing on screen, and there are also banners that introduce new characters who then afterwards join the standard banner pool. And I think that actually is a very free-to-play friendly system. It gives newer players also access to all these characters. Now, Genshin doesn't have that, obviously, but Genshin's success has largely been attributed towards its quality, but we fail to address that Genshin has a lot of these tiny little things that they do that other games don't, that also boost their sales a lot because of fear of missing out, right? So people, if you don't pull on this banner, like he's saying, God knows when the next time this character is going to show up. Newer players who are desperate for an older character is going to have to sit on the sideline twiddling their thumbs, playing the game whether they want or not want to, saving up resources just for a chance to pull the character when they are arriving. And EroticWalruss is super anti-leaks, so but anyways, leaks has actually helped the player base quite a large amount in terms of making sure your resources are properly stored up and going into the right character banners.
Summer or holiday theme reskins of a character tend to only be available during the time periods they correspond to, or if there's a collaboration crossover event such as Blue Archive's collab with Hatsune Miku, you can only get that character during the event period, likely due to licensing conditions and whatnot. Otherwise, the majority of characters end up going into the standard pool, so while you can't easily find a specific character, there's always the chance to, which is the important part. Genshin doesn't follow this practice. For the past 2 years and change, only a handful of 5-star characters have been made perennially available. Diluc, Keqing, Mona, Qiqi, Jean, and recently Tignari and Dia. The rest can only ever be acquired in a featured banner. Ever since I believe the start of 2022, there's been 2 cycles of banners with every version, one of which being the new 5-star unit, and the other 3 being reruns of older characters, although sometimes it ends up being just 4 reruns as evident by version 3.7 not having anyone new. Reruns happen very often in gacha titles to allow players a second opportunity to get a specific unit they've had eyes on but for whatever reason couldn't pull for them during the time they were featured before, which is understandable. Not everyone has easy access to disposable capital at all points in time. Many spend weeks to months accumulating premium currency to roll for just one character, and no one in their right mind is gonna try their abysmal luck at the standard banner even if said unit was obtainable all year round, so they'd rather wait for an event banner featuring their desired character. This is where we start to notice a yellow if not red flag for how Genshin's banner system operates, seeing as how they run banners in pairs.
Okay, quick pause here because I want to highlight that with each iteration of HoYover's title, the gacha system has become more and more free-to-play friendly, and it definitely feels like to me HoYoverse has gathered enough data to know that, okay, if we make certain features of the gacha system more free-to-play friendly, but also have ways for whales to accelerate through that free-to-play process. In the case of Honkai Star Rail, you have the 300 standard banner summons. How many whales probably spent money to blow past the 300 summons just to select the character they want, right? If you are one of them, comment down below, because I certainly am one of them. When these features are available, both in the long term, it's great for free-to-plays, and in the short term, whales can also have a method of obtaining a relatively good character. And also the quality of characters on the standard banner in Honkai Star Rail is better, in my opinion, than the ones that were present in Genshin Impact. Now, yes, the game is still relatively new, but just when it comes to the character's kit and design and how their eidolons flow, it's definitely an upgrade. And the point here is that HoYoverse refuses to update the previous titles with these adjustment features. They rather keep them the way they were because they don't want any changes to happen. They don't want to mess with the code, whatever reason. However, they do know what is good and working, and they take this and move it into new titles. What am I saying here? What I'm basically saying is if you want a more free-to-play friendly, a better overall system, it's best to just wait for a future HoYoverse title, because all the problems or the majority of issues that people have brought up from Genshin Impact has been resolved or addressed in Honkai Star Rail. So yeah, I honestly, right now, in Genshin Impact, I wouldn't even be surprised if they start running like triple banners, quad banners, so maybe like 6 character reruns very soon. I don't know, but yeah, let's just continue.
That means a maximum of only 4 can be featured during a 6 to 8 week period. While the number of featured banners has remained static for the past year and a half, the number of 5-star units has been continually increasing, and with it, the maintenance required to give every character the same opportunities to be attainable. You may remember seeing this graphic in my 5 Things Genshin Impact Needs video, illustrating how long it's been since a 5-star character has had a rerun as of version 3.6, with some of them going as far as 6 to 7 patches without one, and Eula famously going 12, now 13 patches without a rerun, over a year and a half. Version 3.7's 4 banners are running Yoimiya, Yaemiko, Kazuha, and Alhaitham. 3 of them have been due for a featured banner for quite some time. Kazuha in particular, who was reaching 8 patches. This means that anyone who wanted Kazuha on their team, which they have every reason to want, basically wait an entire year to get him. And it's not even a case of they got unlucky with the 50-50 fails or anything. They just physically could not get Kazuha under any circumstance until just now. Genshin Impact is a title rich with narrative storytelling, character exposition, and lore. An immeasurable amount of attention is given to just about all of them, leading to a sense of immersion and depth you don't really see in other gachas. That's what I think draws many people to Genshin. In other games like Fire Emblem Heroes or Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, the characters you pull for are summoned from other worlds to assist you.
A little bit of a correction here. In my opinion, what draws people towards Genshin initially is the graphics, the overworld, the music, or the general quality of the game. What keeps them staying usually is the lore, the attention to detail when it comes to how characters interact not with just us, but also the overworld.
During your quest, mostly for fan service, they have no pertinence to the story. That narrative disconnect allows you to get away with some fun activities, such as the Konosuba gacha game having collaborations with Overlord and ReZero, or Azur having a Hololive collab. But as far as story involvement, they're mutually exclusive. In Genshin, however, the characters in your roster are not just tools for battle, they have their own place in the game's universe. The interactions you have with them in-game allow you to form a deeper connection with them, subsequently increasing your desire to want them on your team. And it's also the primary reason why people didn't like having Aloy, because she didn't belong in the Genshin mythos. Where I'm going with this is that Genshin's units are not just for combat. Players fawn over them just like they would any other anime character, making it all the more frustrating to find out you have no way of adding them to your party. That frustration is not endemic to merely that demographic though. Story aside, hardcore gacha players who play for gameplay would be arguably even more vexed to have to wait for months on end to have the opportunity to get certain units to complete their party. As more time passes and MiHoYo releases more 5-stars, assuming they hold the number of banners at 4 per cycle, every character will take longer and longer for their reruns. Some may eventually be forgotten altogether, which I envision is what's happening to Eula and Klee. You can make the case that both Eula and Klee have been power crept at this point, and that it's unlikely for them to be a priority character from a financial standpoint for MiHoYo and from a performative standpoint for the players, which isn't wrong, but it doesn't change the fact that there are players who still want those characters, if nothing else for the sake of collecting. If MiHoYo doesn't do something about this soon, more and more characters will face the same consequence of going long stretches of time without a rerun. If that's the issue, why not just make 3 banners per cycle, or 4? That's certainly an option, but when does it stop? If the ideal solution is to add more banners per cycle, then at that point you might as well just throw them into the permanent pool, begging the question, why is MiHoYo against doing what every other gacha game does? One very simple reason: oversaturation. All video games are doomed to the same eventual fate of oversaturation, some more rapidly than others. Gachas just so happen to be more on the rapid side. Considering many of them release new characters and new content on a monthly or bi-weekly or even weekly basis, it won't take long before the game power and feature creeps with hundreds or thousands of characters, everyone doing billions of damage, and the game being a jumbled mess. The goal of any gacha that wants to last a long time is to stall that eventuality for as long as possible. I don't blame MiHoYo for making every character limited. Yes, there's the ever so flagrant abuse of FOMO by creating the illusion of scarcity to pressure people into impulse purchases, but even from a game design standpoint, some gachas age enough to where 5 stars from 5 years ago are equivalent to 3 stars nowadays. For some of us, it would be really disappointing to get a 5 star only for it to be Klee or Albedo and not Yelan or Nahida. Conversely, because there's so few 5 stars on permanent rotation, we're already experiencing that kind of disappointment where you either win the 50-50 or lose it. You would think that getting Mona or Jean on your team when you didn't have one previously is a decent loss of a 50-50, but no, not really. Even if it's a brand new unit, people would much rather just get the unit they were going for. But that's only because...
You see, this is why I have to highlight this thing again, is that when you lose a 50-50, sure, it sucks and you definitely didn't want a character that just randomly popped up, Jean, Mona, anybody, but when it comes to Honkai Star Rail, the Eidolon system is far better designed in my opinion, and it flows together for each character very well. HoYoverse was very attentive to what the character's key role in the game is and doesn't just randomly throw in something like plus 50% defense to something like Seele at Eidolon 4 for whatever reason, right? It's just things has become more clear to the development team, and that these systems now all tie together into each other. When I pull on a banner on Honkai Star, if I fail my 50-50, I would be fine getting, let's say, a Branya E1. I think a lot of these characters have great kits, and E1s, E2s, even E4s, that synergizes even more with their strength, and I can leverage that power to have more fun. Whereas Genshin Impact, honestly, for the most part, doesn't have that. And the worst part is, in Genshin, I'm very close to getting C6 on some of the standard banner characters. For example, Chi-Chi, her C6 allows you to revive characters. Like, what were they thinking when they designed these constellations? And the refusal to make any adjustments to it just adds more problems to this whole mess of a situation, right? Honestly, I think that Genshin Impact is way too expensive for what kind of quality they offer when it comes to vertical progression for some characters. But that's why a lot of people flock to the really rare ones that actually have great vertical progression, as well as C0 free-to-play options.
Those characters are so old. If every 5-star was obtainable all year round, I don't know about you, but I would very gladly be happy to lose a 50-50 if it meant I would pull a duplicate Yelan, Kazuha, or Shogun. Realistically, I don't see anyone being excited to pull for a Mona or Chi-Chi off banner in this day and age. No offense to Mona and Chi-Chi mains, of course. As mentioned earlier, I understand their reluctance to adding characters to the standard pool, as it might cheapen the value of them and therefore lower overall sales for when they do get featured, but something has to be done. We can't just leave the gacha system as it is now. The simplest solution would be to throw every character into the standard pool, but let's assume that's out of the question. How can we resolve this issue? I have 3 things in mind, the first of which I proposed in the 5 things video. What they could do is add older units into the standard pool, as in those who came out a long time ago. For example, if a character has been out for X amount of time, then they should just automatically go into the standard pool, but we can make it so that time frame is a very long one. That way, it can still satisfy MiHoYo's desire to uphold that sense of urgency, where if you don't pull for them now, you have to wait a long time, while preventing the undesirable outcome of a 5-star not getting a rerun for years. For the sake of argument, let's say a full version. So at the start of Sumeru, all version 1 characters should have been added to the standard pool with the exception of plot significant ones like the Archons. So according to that, Klee, Child, Albedo, Ganyu, Xiao, Hutao, Eula, and Kazuha should all be included. Then when Fontaine rolls around, version 2 characters can be added. Ayaka, Yoimiya, Kokomi, Ito, Sunhe, maybe skip Yaimiko, Ayato, and Yelan. That would ensure the more recent characters maintain their freshness in a manner of speaking.
Wait a minute, but at the same time, who would go on the standard banner to pull for any characters? If they're on, even if they're on the standard banner, you only have a finite amount of gems. Your gems will always be better spent on a select limited banner with a 50% rate up on a character. Even let's say Yelan's in the standard banner, she, like, at this rate, she's gonna have like a 1 out of 50 chance or maybe 60 chance of pulling her. It's abysmally low. The chances of you getting screwed over pulling some random character is still astronomically high, and the fact that you have to spend the same amount of resource into the standard banner as you do into a limited banner, I don't think people are really gonna touch the standard banner regardless. They're still gonna hoard, they're still gonna just wait for a great limited rate up banner like the one we saw for Yelan and Hu Tao. So like, yes, this gives the whales or people who are okay with getting a bunch of different characters, like I'm okay getting like 50 out of the 60 characters, but I really want, let's say, the top 5 characters, I want a blah blah blah, then yeah, maybe. But like, it's still a weird thing to say, like, well, then just go on the standard banner and go roll the roulette and see what you get. You might get something good, you might get something ass, like nobody knows. Right? And again, I have to reiterate, the vast majority of Genshin Impact's constellations are just not that well designed. So if you end up getting a character to C1, C2, it's like you didn't get anything, right? It's weird. And also for like Zhao mains getting C3 to C4 is like getting nothing, essentially.
While older units don't get neglected. It doesn't need to be implemented in that exact way, but by adding a time buffer of some sort, we can at the very least delay the eventual oversaturation of characters in the standard pool. Besides, Genshin rarely releases new characters. Adding 8 or so every year isn't too bad compared to other gachas adding like 30 or 40. The other solution would be to add some way for players to work towards a specific unit they want, a system they sort of implemented in Honkai Star Rail. Back when I used to play Brave Exvius, by participating in events, you could get your hands on Unit of Choice tickets, or UOCs, and by exchanging 10 of them, you could get any 5-star character of your choice. However, you can only get 5 stars that were out for a long time, not any of the recent ones, but as time went on, they would continually add more and more characters to that available pool. Granted, FFB's gameplay was predicated on acquiring copious amounts of duplicate characters to obtain their Trustmaster and Super Trustmaster rewards, but point being, it was an effective way for players to deliberately choose which characters they wanted, either for function or for personal collection. In Star Rail, they have a similar unit of choice experience, where by pulling 300 times on the standard banner, you can get any of the standard pool 5 stars. MiHoYo should introduce a unit of choice system for Genshin. For example, you know how every flagship event has a Ground of Insight that's used to max out a character's talent, right? Perhaps they can add another item per flagship event, and when you get 5 of them, you can obtain a 5-star character of your choice. Alternatively, they can make it a battle pass thing where if you reach level 50, you get that item, and by completing 5 battle pass cycles, you can get your character. It's not overly gratuitous to where players are being showered in 5 stars.
It's amazing that Vars is recommending these great things that HoYoverse can implement. However, HoYoverse also knows this, right? There are a lot of things they could do. Just look at what they did for Honkai Star Rail. Like, we cannot say they don't know what to do. Yes, we're trying to give them things that they could do or options they can choose from to improve the game drastically, both in the sense for the whales, the spenders, right, and the free-to-plays, low spenders. However, what I truly believe is that HoYoverse has seen that the current system and model works. They're making tens of millions on a good banner, maybe even hundreds of millions, right, on an insane banner. What is the incentive to change? This is what I always go back to. Like, yes, we can say all these good things, we can promote all these great ideas, but at the end of the day, what's going to drive HoYoverse to make any change whatsoever? Like what? Honestly, what? It's going to be the loss of sales. If something happens that really messes up their balance sheets at the end of the quarter or semi-quarter, then maybe they'll look and say, well, we need to adjust something and make changes so we can get back to where we were or get closer back to where we were. But right now, yes, the biggest problem with Genshin Impact is the fan base and the people who have become very comfortable spending this amount of money, right? I know a lot of you guys watching, it's like, Walrus, I've already quit this game and I'm not coming back. I'll never play HoYoverse title, but you're not the ones I'm talking about. The ones who are blindly just throwing more money at Genshin Impact. They either believe that Genshin is going to get better or they already think Genshin is in its perfect state, right? And it feels like someone like Vars, who makes these kind of videos, who gives good input, this kind of stuff just falls on deaf ears, because I don't think HoYoverse is going to make any changes whatsoever, since they're already raking in hundreds of millions and probably still going to be looking at over $1 billion in sales this year. And this is an abysmal year when it comes to quality of characters. But then again, right, it's HoYoverse and Fontaine's coming out. Maybe that's going to save their balance sheet.
but it could be something to work towards. For free-to-plays, it can help them get a unit that's essential to rounding out their team composition, and for pay-to-wins, they get a free constellation or something. The game hasn't stepped up its rewards in a very long time. I think by now the player base is deserving of a few concessions, because think about it like this. As it stands, the gacha system is a major source of frustration, especially for players who've been patiently waiting for a certain unit to be featured. Make them wait too long and you run the risk of losing them altogether. By satisfying at least a small craving for them, if we want to call it that, you can keep them around for longer. In the world of business, that's called a loss leader. Genshin's always been parsimonious, even down to the number of free gems you get per month. But by being too stingy, you'll end up driving potential spenders away. I think one way they can alleviate that is by adding a unit of choice system. But if either of those two situations doesn't seem appealing to miHoYo for whatever reason, my third one is a bit of a hybrid between the first and second. They can do set rotations, which can potentially replace reruns altogether. You know how the weapon banner has 2 weapons you can choose from via the epitomized path? I don't see why they can't do that for characters. Make it so multiple 5 stars are featured on a set banner and then have the player decide which one they want as their hard pity. That way, players can work towards their unit of choice while possibly getting new 5 stars at the same time, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. For instance, let's say during one set rotation we have Sunhe, Hutal, and Ito. Some players may be missing 1, 2, or all 3. Instead of having to wail for each one separately, they can work on getting all of them. Profitability-wise, it doesn't affect miHoYo's bottom line as much as one would think. There are so many 5-star characters in the game now, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a free-to-play player with even half of them. Pulling on a banner with 3 or 4 potential new 5 stars sounds more enticing than pulling for them individually, because that way you're guaranteed to get something new as opposed to standalone banners giving you either that character or just nothing. Whatever the case, Genshin's banner system is failing to withstand the test of time, and it's getting increasingly more tiresome for them to announce a rerun of a character that came out literally 2 months ago when there are some 5 stars who haven't gotten one in ages. I understand they're taking into consideration how much revenue each banner generates, but they need to account for players who haven't been here since day 1 and haven't been able to get every character or at least a specific one they want. Most long-standing gachas are...
And also, it's funny because the reason that HoYoverse is going to lose a lot of money, especially in the West, right, and also for sure in the East, is that content creators are not going to let their viewers make that mistake. If Eula comes back, you can bet most people are going to talk about the problem with Eula, why she's not a good pickup, and the new players coming in, or the relatively new players who are playing the game maybe for a couple patches, like, oh, that character looks amazing, and then they do some research on it and they realize, oh, that character sucks ass, right? And I'm still building my account. Let's be honest, only the newer players are going to fall for something like Eula to begin with, and if people tell them, don't waste your time on it, go build something else. If you really like her, right, sure, pick her up, you can still play her, but you know, you're gonna struggle to make her work, and you're gonna have to put in more resources to get her to perform at the same level as some of these other characters. If you don't care about efficiency and whatnot, go ahead and get her. But overall, it's gonna be a lot of negative info dump on why Eula is just not good, and HoYoverse knows that. Both in the East and the West, content creators are going to do the exact same thing. So why would they actively release a character that they know is going to flop to us? And that's why I said in the past that there is a chance that maybe the next time Eula comes around, we could potentially see future potential characters that come patches later that maybe buffs her up a little bit. What HoYoverse loves to do is not to release a support first and then give you the rerun. They'll give you the rerun, and then a couple patches later they'll release a character that really benefits the character that just had their rerun, ultimately giving you like a double FOMO. Be like, okay, I'm gonna skip this character, but then that character comes out, which makes this character really good, and damn, I skipped this character, now I have to skip this character, now I feel like a dumbass. And then they redesign the whole meta around this type of playstyle for the next 2-3 patches and make you really suffer. These are the tactics they've been using for like almost 3 years now, right? I wouldn't really be surprised. This is not to tell you guys to pull Eula if she does come back soon, but I'm just saying, right? You got to pick your poison when it comes to this stuff. Pick a character or a playstyle or an element. You really should be looking towards what you enjoy more so, other than what other people are saying is good, bad, fun, not fun, etc.
Are aware that as more and more units come out, it becomes more difficult to attain all of them, especially for newer players. So they add in systems like unit of choice or make it easier to get 5 stars to avoid excluding any demographic of players. Genshin has to do the same. Otherwise, I can imagine many players quitting because they're simply fed up with waiting for a rerun of their favorite character, and that's a loss of a potential revenue source for miHoYo. Now, before anyone says that miHoYo doesn't want to put in the work to do that, it takes literally no effort. You have to basically just add them to a list in a JSON file or whatever, and there you go. I know a lot of people have pulled the miHoYo is lazy argument, but for this specific scenario, they have legitimately no excuse. An undergrad computer science major can do this in like 5 minutes. But anyways, what do you guys think? Do you like the ideas they came up with for reworking 5?
I like his ideas. I really do. Like I said, Vars has great takes when it comes to certain issues in the game. Well, I mean, there are things that he also says that are good, but when it comes to this particular issue, I just don't think anything is going to happen, right? I've also mentioned in the past that I think Genshin Impact is Hoyoverse's big sandbox. It's where they come to test massive data pools of player behavior and tendencies. So with that in mind, I do think that Hoyoverse is just pushing the upper limits. They are very aware of what people want, how long they've been saving their gems for, what activities they partake in, their daily login hours, what they spend. Like, they know everything. And right now, I truly think Hoyoverse are testing the upper limits of, for example, how long people are willing to wait for a character banner without quitting the game because of it. Vars is saying, well, if you do this way too long, then people are going to quit. Good. That's what Hoyoverse wants to know. Are you going to quit if we don't rerun Eula for, let's say, 15 patches, 16 patches? It's like they keep pushing it back, and then once they release this character, it's probably like, okay, you know, we've gotten enough. Let's set the line here. And now they have this data because it's just human psyche, right? It's not special to just Genshin Impact players. All players, all people playing these games are going to be subjected to the similar kind of psychological attacks by Hoyoverse. So going forward, Honkai Star Rail, Zenless Zone Zero, and whatever title they make, they'll have this metadata of, okay, this is how we can manipulate things. This is how we can operate to get the most into our pockets. And that's just it. And I do think Genshin is the perfect space for Hoyoverse to do this because of its large player base, and a lot of the players here have been kind of just stuck in Genshin Impact, whether it's willingly or unwillingly. People are playing this game because they don't want to quit, or they can't quit, or they actually really enjoy it. Regardless which one it is, Genshin has an insane amount of players playing it, and it would be foolish for Hoyoverse not to take advantage of all this data. That's just my take, but yeah, go check out this video. I'll link it down in the description. But I'll see you guys on the live stream today because I'm going to be summoning in Honkai Star Rail. Love to see you guys there, and until then, urge you to stay safe. Peace, peace. Bye bye.